I found a photo of my missing brother inside a locked room that doesn't belong to me. My name is Michael. I'm 39, and I work as a freelance photojournalist. I live alone in a rented flat just outside Detroit. My job takes me to some strange places, but nothing prepared me for what I stumbled into last autumn. It started with a letter. Not an email. Not a text. An actual envelope slipped under my door while I was out getting groceries. No return address, no stamp. Inside, there was just a photograph, faded, slightly torn at the edges, and a note scrawled on the back in smudged ink. You were right, he's alive, but he's not the same. I turned the photo over and nearly dropped it. It was my brother Ryan. He'd been missing for 6 years. No trace. No sightings. One night he'd just vanished without a word, without packing, leaving his keys, wallet, and phone behind. The police eventually gave up. Everyone assumed he was... except me. I examined the photo. Ryan was standing beside a small wooden house, the kind you'd find in northern Michigan or maybe Maine. He looked older, gaunt, with hollow eyes, but unmistakably him. Behind him, I noticed something else, a red handprint smeared on the door. I barely slept that night. I kept staring at the photo, trying to make sense of it. The postmark on the back said Trenton, a small town about 30 minutes away from me. The next morning, I packed my camera, a flashlight, and a switchblade I kept in a drawer for emergencies. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. When I arrived in Trenton, I felt off immediately. The town was quite too quiet. The kind of eerie silence where even birds avoid chirping. I showed the photo around to a few locals, pretending I was doing a piece on small town architecture. No one recognized the house or Ryan, but an old man at a gas station looked at the photo for a long moment and whispered, "That's not a place you find, that place finds you." Before I could ask more, he turned and walked away, mumbling something about faces that aren't theirs. Later that day, just as I was about to head home, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I let it ring. Then a voicemail came in. It was just breathing at first. Then a voice, raspy, like it hadn't spoken in years, whispered, "Stop looking, he's not your brother anymore." I checked the call log. No number. No origin. When I turned to head back to my car, a man was watching me from across the street. I called out, but he didn't respond. Just walked into an alley and vanished. I ran after him. What I found in that alley shattered my grip on reality. A door. Just a door frame. Freestanding, no building around it. Just there, leaning against the brick wall. And on it, another red handprint. Same as the one in the photo. I reached out to touch it. It was still warm. I don't know why I touched it. Something about that warmth felt familiar, like I had been here before, in a dream or a nightmare. But as soon as my fingers made contact, the door swung open with a soft creak. Beyond it was a small room, dimly lit by a flickering light hanging from the ceiling. My breath caught in my throat when I stepped inside. The air was thick, stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. The floor creaked under my boots as I scanned the room. It wasn't much: a chair, a desk covered in papers, and the unmistakable smell of dust and mildew. But what caught my eye was a framed photograph on the desk. I moved closer, trembling as I picked it up. It was the same photo of Ryan. But now, something was different. His eyes weren't hollow, they were alive. There was a faint smile tugging at his lips. But it wasn't a smile I recognized. It was unsettling. A smile that seemed to be hiding something far darker. A voice snapped me out of my trance. "Who are you?" I spun around, heart pounding. The man I had seen earlier, the one who had disappeared into the alley, was now standing in the doorway. He wasn't the same. There was something wrong about him. His skin was too pale, his eyes too white. His hair disheveled and matted, looked as if it hadn't been washed in weeks, maybe months. "Who are you?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "What is this place?" The man's lips curled into a grin, and for a moment I swore his teeth looked unnaturally sharp. "You shouldn't have come here. Now you're part of the story." I froze. I wasn't sure if he was threatening me or warning me, but either way, my instinct screamed at me to leave. But as I moved toward the door, I noticed something strange. The hallway outside was different. The door that had led me into the alley was gone. Instead, I was staring at a narrow, dim corridor, lined with doors that seemed to stretch forever. The man stepped into the room, blocking the way. "You're not going anywhere." I swallowed, backing away slowly, my mind racing. I had to think. I had to get out of there. But where was I? This wasn't Trenton. This wasn't anywhere I recognized. It felt like I had stepped through some kind of portal into a place where logic didn't apply. The man laughed softly, as if he could read my thoughts. "There's no escape. You found the door. Now you have to follow it." His words hit me like a slap in the face. I realized then that this wasn't just about finding Ryan. It was about something far more twisted. Something that had been waiting for me, pulling me here. I reached for the switchblade in my pocket, my hand trembling. The man's smile widened. "You'll need more than that." Before I could react, The lights flickered and then went out completely, plunging the room into darkness. I heard the soft sound of footsteps retreating into the shadows. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. All I could hear was my own breathing ragged, panicked, and the faint whisper of someone calling my name. Michael. It was Ryan's voice, but it wasn't coming from the direction I expected. It was coming from behind one of the doors. Without thinking, I lunged toward it, flinging it open, only to find nothing. Empty darkness. And then the door slammed shut behind me, uselessly, each step heavy with dread. My hand reached for the handle, but before I could touch it, the door swung open by itself with an eerie squeak. Inside was a room, or rather a scene. A small table in the centre, and on it, a collection of photographs. But these weren't random pictures. These were moments of my life, Ryan and me at our parents' cabin, my high school graduation, our road trip to the Grand Canyon, even moments that hadn't happened yet, as if someone had been watching me, recording my every move. I froze, my eyes scanning the photographs in disbelief. I looked down at the one on the far right and recoiled. It was a picture of Ryan, his eyes wide with fear, his mouth open in a silent scream. But it wasn't the picture that caught my attention. It was the reflection in the glass. A shadowy figure stood behind him. A tall, gaunt silhouette that seemed to shift and writhe, like it didn't belong in the frame at all. I backed away slowly, the floor creaking beneath my feet. The figure seemed to follow my movement, its eyes now focused on me. Who are you? I breathed, my voice trembling with fear. The figure didn't answer. But I felt a cold chill suddenly sweep over the room, an unnatural frost that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. And then, with a violent lurch, the door slammed shut behind me, locking with an ominous click. I was trapped in this nightmare. But just as I was about to lose control of my panic, the room began to change. The walls warped, twisting like they were melting, stretching to impossible lengths. The photographs seemed to flicker and distort, their edges curling, as if they were trying to escape the frame. Then I heard it again, Ryan's voice, but this time it was close, too close. Michael. It was coming from behind me. I turned around, desperate, but there was nothing there. Just that empty space, that unsettling cold, and the oppressive darkness closing in. And then I felt something. A cold hand on my shoulder. I spun around, my breath caught in my throat. But again, nothing. The walls groaned like they were alive, and the door to the room, the one I had just tried to escape, began to bleed. Red liquid poured down the frame, splattering onto the floor in slow, deliberate drips. I ran. Straight down the hall, down the endless corridor of doors that seemed to go on forever. But no matter how far I ran, no matter how many doors I opened, I couldn't escape. Every time I opened one, it led me to the same room, the room with the photographs. With Ryan. With that thing in the reflection. And then I realized something. The man I had seen earlier, the one who had warned me, the one who had blocked my exit, he was right. I wasn't supposed to leave. This place wasn't a place I could leave. It was a trap. A maze. And I had just walked right into it. I had to stop. My chest was burning, and my head spun with panic. The hallway seemed endless, twisting and shifting around me, the walls pulsating with every step. I couldn't remember how long I'd been running, minutes, hours, days. Time didn't seem to exist here. And then, as if the place itself was mocking me, the corridor stopped dead. It was like hitting a wall in the middle of a race, a sudden halt that made my legs buckle beneath me. The flashlight flickered one last time before plunging me into total darkness. But I could still hear it. The sound of breathing. Soft, laboured, like someone or something was waiting in the shadows. Ryan, I whispered into the void, hoping for a response. Anything. A moment of silence, and then it came. Michael. It wasn't his voice anymore. It was like a chorus of voices, too many, overlapping each other, distorting, twisting until it became something unrecognizable. My skin crawled. I swallowed hard and backed away, knowing that I had to keep moving. But where to? Every direction felt wrong. Every door I had opened only led to more darkness, more confusion. That's when I saw it. In the distance, just beyond the end of the hallway, there was a small crack of light, faint, but enough to catch my attention. It was coming from behind a door. It wasn't the same as the other doors. This one, it felt different, like it was meant for me to find. I walked towards it slowly, the echoes of my footsteps seeming too loud in the silence. The closer I got, the more the air around me seemed to shift. The walls no longer felt like solid stone, they felt alive, breathing, watching me. When I reached the door, it was cracked open just enough for me to peer inside. I hesitated before pushing it fully open, my heart pounding as I stepped into the next room. What I found made me stop cold. It wasn't just another empty space or a twisted version of reality. It was a reflection of the house I had grown up in. I recognized the kitchen immediately, the worn-out wooden floor, the old refrigerator, the hanging plants that my mother used to take care. The kitchen where I had once had a conversation with Ryan. But there was something wrong with it. The colours were too vivid, almost unnatural. The shadows stretched too long, bending in ways that shouldn't have been possible. And at the centre of the kitchen, standing in front of the sink, was a man. At first, I thought it was Ryan. But then I realized, with a sickening jolt, that it wasn't. It was me. The man in front of the sink turned slowly, and my own face stared back at me. But it wasn't me, not really. The eyes, wide and hollow, were completely empty. His lips twisted into a grin, and the smile felt like a grotesque mockery. "You are not supposed to be here," the reflection said, and its voice was a perfect mimicry of mine. I stumbled backward, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This wasn't possible. This wasn't real. But no matter how hard I tried to tear my eyes away from the reflection, it wouldn't disappear. The face in the kitchen, my face, kept grinning at me, its eyes locked with mine. And then the smile widened. Too wide. I ran. I didn't even look back. I couldn't. But I could hear it behind me, echoing through the corridors, growing louder with each passing second. The sound of footsteps, my footsteps chasing me, getting closer. I slammed open another door, desperate to escape, but all I found was another version of the same hallway. More doors. More endless corridors that seemed to stretch into infinity. This place, it wasn't real. It couldn't be. But every corner I turned, every new door I opened, only brought me closer to that one thing, the thing that had been hunting me all along. The thing that looked like me. I had to face it. There was no escaping it. No running. I didn't know if it was the place warping my mind or if something far darker was going on. But I had to confront it, whatever it was, if I ever wanted to get out. And then, from the far end of the hallway, I heard the whisper again. Michael. Ryan's voice. But not quite. It was the voice of someone who had already been lost to whatever had taken hold of this place. And then the floor beneath me trembled. It wasn't just the house shifting anymore. It was something far worse. The walls were closing in. The house was alive. I didn't have time to think. The walls were closing in, narrowing around me with an unnatural force that seemed to come from within the very structure of the place. The floor groaned, a deep, unsettling noise, as if the building itself was stretching and shifting, trying to reclaim whatever had dared enter it. I turned and ran, adrenaline surging through my veins. Every door I passed seemed to shift and warp, some open to nothing but blackness, while others led to more rooms that mirrored the first, a reflection of my childhood, distorted and warped. Each image of my past seemed tainted by something darker, something malevolent. But it wasn't just the house that was after me, I could feel it. The thing that had been chasing me, it wasn't just an illusion. It was real somehow, and it was getting closer. The footsteps. My footsteps. Echoing in time with my frantic breathing, louder and more distorted with each passing moment. My own reflection, the one in the kitchen, kept staring at me, that grin widening, the empty eyes following my every move. Every time I looked into a mirror, every time I caught a glimpse of myself, it felt like I was losing myself a little more. And then, with that warning, I came to another door. This one was different. There was no light spilling from beneath it. It was dark, completely dark, like the door was a void itself. But it was the only door left. I had no choice. I pushed it open. Inside was a room so pitch black that even my flashlight couldn't penetrate the darkness. I took a step inside, the door slamming shut behind me, trapping me in the void. And then I heard it. A whisper. A voice barely audible at first, but then it became clear. It was Ryan. Michael. I froze. That was his voice, no doubt about it. But there was something wrong. Something strange about the way he said my name. Ryan? I called out, my voice shaking. A low, guttural laugh answered me. It's too late for you, Michael. The voice wasn't just Ryan's anymore. It was distorted, layered with a dozen different voices, each one more menacing than the last. I stumbled backward, trying to orient myself, but the room was so dark I couldn't tell where I was. The wall seemed to be closing in again, suffocating me with an unrelenting pressure. Then something touched my shoulder. Cold, icy fingers that sent a jolt of terror through my spine. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Nothing but a pair of glowing eyes hovering in the dark. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, its form shifting, as though it wasn't quite solid. It was tall, gaunt, its skin pale and stretched tight over its bones. Its mouth was too wide, lips curling back into a grin that seemed to tear its face apart. You shouldn't have come here, the figure hissed, its voice a mixture of my own and Ryan's, twisted and unrecognizable. This place doesn't let go. I backed away slowly, the cold sweat on my skin mixing with the chill in the air. I was trapped. I couldn't think straight, couldn't breathe. I tried to speak, to scream, but my voice wouldn't come out. Then, a low rumble vibrated through the floor, and the walls began to pulse again. It was as though the entire house was alive, breathing, waiting for me to make the final choice. Ryan's voice echoed in the room, but now it was distorted, faint, as if coming from far away. Michael, it's too late. And then, the figure moved forward, too quickly, too smoothly. Its hands reached out to grab me, but before I could react, everything went black. I fell. The floor beneath me gave way, and I plummeted into an abyss. My stomach lurched, my heart racing as I fell deeper into the darkness, the sound of my own scream echoing around me. And then I hit the ground. I don't know how long I was unconscious. It could have been seconds, minutes, hours. When I woke up, I was lying in an unfamiliar room, dimly lit by a flickering light. The walls were smooth, sterile, like a hospital room or a prison. I sat up slowly, my head throbbing. And that's when I saw it. A door. A single, plain wooden door at the far end of the room. But there was something different about it. It looked familiar. I got to my feet, my body aching with each movement. The moment I touched the door, the same feeling came over me again, the cold, the oppressive darkness, the sense that this place was watching me. I opened the door. What I found on the other side made my blood run cold. It was my brother Ryan. He was sitting on the floor, his back against the wall, eyes wide open but unseeing. His body was motionless like a doll. And then, with a shuddering breath, he slowly turned his head toward me. Michael. His voice was hollow, empty. Help me. I stood frozen in the doorway, my heart pounding in my chest, my breath caught in my throat. There, sitting lifeless against the wall, was Ryan. My brother. The one I had searched for, the one I had fought to find. But something was wrong. The way he was staring at me blankly, without recognition, was enough to send a cold chill down my spine. He wasn't the brother I remembered. His eyes were glassy, unblinking, and his face, once full of warmth and life, was now twisted with something darker. Ryan? I whispered, stepping into the room cautiously, my voice trembling. Is it really you? His head tilted slightly, as if he heard me, but then he just sat there, unmoving, staring into the space in front of him. I felt the familiar weight of dread settle over me as I took another step forward, reaching out to him. That's when I noticed it. The walls. They weren't just walls anymore. The surface seemed to be alive, writhing with faint shapes, dark, indistinct figures that moved in and out of the shadows, like ghostly silhouettes trapped beneath the skin of the room. They seemed to pulse with an eerie rhythm, as if the very room itself was breathing. And then, without warning, the door slammed shut behind me, trapping me inside with Ryan and whatever else was in this place. Ryan? I shouted, spinning around, panic rising in my chest. What happened? Where are we? He didn't answer. I turned back to him. His lips barely moved when he spoke, as though he was too tired to make a sound. It's too late. They already have us. Who? I asked, my voice shaking. Who is us? What's going on here? Ryan's eyes flickered toward me, but there was no recognition in them, just emptiness. Then he spoke again, his voice barely more than a whisper. They're watching. I froze, my blood running cold. They. The words echoed in my head as the room seemed to shift again, the walls groaning, the shadows lengthening. There was something else in the space, something ancient, something dark. They're always watching. Michael. Ryan continued, his voice low and distorted. They pull people in, they twist them. It doesn't matter how hard you fight. Once you're here, you can't leave, not until they get what they want. His words hung in the air, thick with dread. I wasn't sure if I should trust him or if he was simply another victim, lost to whatever had been haunting this place. But before I could ask another question, I heard a noise behind me. A scraping sound. A low, drawn-out screech that felt like it was coming from the very walls themselves. I turned around just in time to see the shadows on the walls beginning to form into something more substantial, something human-like. A figure emerged from the darkness. A tall, gaunt shape with long, ragged limbs. Its skin was pale, translucent, and stretched thin over its bones. The figure stepped forward, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light, and it smiled. But it wasn't a smile. Not really. Its mouth stretched far too wide, the lips pulling back to reveal rows of sharp, jagged teeth. I see you found him, the figure hissed, its voice like nails scraping across a chalkboard. Did you think you could escape, Michael? I took a step back, my heart racing, my mind spinning. This creature wasn't human. It wasn't anything that could be explained. It was something else entirely. What are you? I asked, my voice trembling. The creature stepped closer, its smile widening, showing too many teeth. I'm what comes when the door opens, I'm what you let in. The room seemed to contract around me. The walls closed in tighter, the air growing heavier, suffocating me. Ryan's figure blurred in my peripheral vision, his form twisting unnaturally. Suddenly, Ryan's voice shouted out from behind me. Run, Michael, run! I didn't think. I just moved. I ran toward the door, desperate to escape, but as soon as my hand touched the handle, the ground beneath me gave way. I fell again. This time, there was no soft landing, no cushion, just a brutal impact. I hit the floor hard, the air knocked out of me as I struggled to get up. When I opened my eyes, the world around me had changed. I wasn't in the room with Ryan anymore. I was outside. The scene was impossible. It was my childhood neighbourhood, the one I hadn't seen in over 20 years. But it was wrong. The houses were twisted, distorted, their windows black like empty voids. The trees were gnarled and bent, their branches reaching out like claws. And then I saw him. Ryan. He was standing in front of the house we had grown up in, his eyes locked on me. But his face was different. The smile from the reflection in the kitchen was there again, wide, too wide, stretching from ear to ear. Michael. His voice was distorted, like he wasn't entirely him anymore. Come back, it's time. The world around me walked, and I realized, with a sinking feeling in my stomach, that I wasn't in control anymore. This place, whatever it was making the rules. And it had already decided my fate. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred as I staggered forward, the ground beneath me shifting with every step. My heart was racing, pounding in my chest, but I couldn't stop moving. Ryan was standing there, motionless, staring at me. His face, twisted into that grotesque, too wide grin, sent chills down my spine. Every time I blinked, the world around me seemed to shift, as if the very fabric of reality was bending to this place's will. Ryan! I screamed, my voice raw. Where are you? What's happening? His smile didn't falter. His eyes, those lifeless, empty eyes, held no trace of the brother I knew. This wasn't him. This thing, standing in front of me, wasn't Ryan. I told you, Michael, he said, his voice hollow, distant. You can't escape, it's already too late. I shook my head, willing myself to wake up from whatever nightmare this was. But I didn't wake up. This was real. As real as the nightmare that seemed to swallow everything around me. The darkened houses. The dead trees. The warped streets. The house in front of me, the one I knew too well, stood with its crooked windows and broken door. It wasn't the home I remembered. It was something far darker. The walls seemed to pulse, and the door creaked, almost beckoning me inside. I glanced at Ryan once more. His lips parted, and he whispered, "Come inside, you've been invited." A sense of dread overwhelmed me, but I couldn't move. My legs felt like lead, and my feet were rooted to the ground as if I was trapped in some kind of twisted spell. And then I heard it. A low hum, faint at first, but growing louder. It was coming from the house. It wasn't music. It wasn't even a voice. It was something else, a sound that seemed to vibrate in the very air, making my skin crawl. It was almost like the house itself was calling to me, pulling me toward it, forcing me to step inside. Without thinking, I stumbled forward, walking toward the front door. My hand reached out, and I could feel the warmth of the handle beneath my fingers. The moment I turned it, the door swung open with a soft, mournful creak. The moment I stepped inside, I realized the house had changed again. The hallway stretched impossibly long, the walls narrowing, closing in around me. The ceiling stretched higher, becoming an endless void above me. There was no end in sight, no escape. And then I heard the voice again, but this time it wasn't Ryan's. It was a whisper. 1,000 whispers. You're one of us now. I spun around, trying to find the source of the voices, but there was no one there. The shadows in the corners of the hallway seemed to move, slithering toward me like living creatures, and I could feel their cold gaze on me, watching me. You can't escape. The voice echoed in my mind. You never could. I felt a pressure in my chest, as though the house itself was trying to crush me. I gasped for air, but the oppressive weight of the darkness around me made it feel impossible to breathe. In the distance, I saw something moving, a figure. A man. I couldn't tell who it was at first, but as he drew closer, I recognized him. It was the same man I had seen before, the one who had warned me. His face was pale, his eyes wide and haunted, and his lips were pulled back in a twisted, knowing smile. You should have listened, he said, his voice a gravelly whisper. Once you've entered this place, there is no way out. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. It felt like the house was holding me in place, trapping me in its dark, oppressive grip. The figure took a step closer, his smile widening. You're part of the story now, Michael. You always were. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fight back. But there was no escaping this. The shadows in the room began to writhe again, swirling around me, reaching out to touch me. Their cold fingers brushed against my skin, sending a wave of fear through my body. And then, from the darkness, I heard a voice. Ryan's voice. Faint, distorted. Michael, come back, please. His voice was full of sorrow, full of regret. But it wasn't just his voice. It was the voices of everyone I had ever known. My parents. My friends. All of them lost. Trapped here in this nightmare. And then I understood. This wasn't just about me. It never was. This place, this thing was feeding off of the lost. The broken. The ones who couldn't find their way out. It had been waiting for me. Waiting for someone to come. Someone to join the story. I finally felt the weight of the darkness around me. It wasn't the house. It wasn't the walls. It was them. The voices, the shadows, the figures. They were all waiting for me to give in. But I couldn't. Not yet. I took a deep breath, steadying myself as the shadows closed in. I wasn't ready to become one of them.